right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to watch a video that was just put out a couple hours ago. Not even, I don't think, of a father that killed his whole family before police got there, and then the police ended up having to decease him. So let's check this video out. Breaking tube news.
A man and his wife in their 30s, their 1-year-old baby, and the wife's parents in their early 50s. At some point this morning, the son-in-law was cleaning the snow off of his car in the parking lot and heard a disturbance coming from his apartment. Again, inside the apartment, when the man was cleaning the snow from his car, is the man's wife, their 1-year-old baby, and his in-laws, or her mother and her father. Another 911 caller resides in the building nearby. She too heard a commotion. So 2 911 calls came in pretty close to each other from the son-in-law, who's in the parking lot cleaning the snow off of his car, and from another occupant in the building. The son-in-law goes back into the apartment, finds his wife suffering from stab wounds, and seemingly, and again, it's early in the investigation, he enters the apartment and sees that his father-in-law is armed with a knife that I'll describe generally as a curved dagger. It's got about a 10-inch blade to it. It resembles, frankly, a meat cleaver, but it's a curved dagger with a very long blade. His father-in-law is armed with that, and he is stabbing his wife. He had already stabbed his daughter, and then the father-in-law turned the knife on his son-in-law. So there are 3 stabbing victims. The father/father-in-law stabbed and killed his daughter, and she's been pronounced deceased. He stabbed and injured his wife. He stabbed and injured his son-in-law. The wife and the son-in-law who were stabbed are in grave condition, life-threatening condition, and they're being treated at a local hospital. Thankfully, the baby was unharmed. To describe this scene as bloody is an understatement. The damage and the chaos and the carnage that was perpetrated by this man in his 50s on his own family is unimaginable. So our police officers were dispatched to this chaotic scene, arrived within several minutes. When our officers made their way into the apartment, the father/father-in-law was literally in progress stabbing his son-in-law with that knife, with that curved, long-bladed dagger. Our officer gave repeated commands, one after another, to this perpetrator, the father-in-law, to drop the knife, drop the knife, drop the knife. Not only does he not drop the knife, but he still proceeds to stab the son-in-law. And again, the son-in-law is one of the 911 callers who apparently made his way back into the apartment to intervene, to save lives, I'm sure to rescue his baby. So our officer discharged his firearm and killed the suspect, the perpetrator, the knife-wielding man who had just killed his own daughter and had just stabbed brutally his own wife and brutally his own son-in-law. I can't imagine what was going on behind those 4 walls. Really great job, grace under pressure for someone to make a 911 call when a neighbor heard this commotion in progress. The turmoil that man was going through that would somehow compel him to stab in a really brutal way his own family member like that. I can't wrap my head around that. The loss of any life is something that we all take very seriously. And whenever a Fairfax County police officer discharges his or her firearm to save lives. And that's exactly what happened today. Our police officer was on the scene and literally in a life-saving effort tried to save the life of a man who was being stabbed to death by his own father-in-law. So that young police officer who discharged his firearm preliminarily, and I saw the body-worn camera, and our executive command team saw the body-worn camera footage, did exactly what we expect him to do, and quite frankly, exactly what our community expects him to do. So his grace under pressure, his bravery, his effort to save lives may in fact have done that. I don't know yet, because the son-in-law who was being stabbed by the father-in-law is still in grave condition and is being operated, I think, on right now. But that young police officer did what we expect him to do. And I will pause there and take any questions, and I'll start with Neil Augenstein.
Hi. Okay, so can you describe a little bit more about what the person who was clearing the car heard? Can you,
All right, ladies and gents, this is pretty crazy. You know, he's saying that it's a pretty gruesome scene. So I would imagine police show up and this guy ain't afraid or anything. He just continues on doing what he's doing. As the police are standing there, he's stabbing people. So pretty crazy. Let's continue to see if we can find out a little bit more about this.
you said it's disturbance, but yelling.
So Neil, it sounds like, if I understand your question, the son-in-law is like many other people in the community this morning, even right now, cleaning the snow off of his car, and hears something coming from the apartment. And again, it's the apartment where he resides with his wife, their baby, and his in-laws or her parents. So he hears some type of commotion and rushes back into the apartment and is confronted by a bloodbath of a scene where his wife is stabbed, his mother-in-law is stabbed. The baby is present right in the middle of it all. You'll see that in the body camera footage that we release to the community after each and every critical officer involved shooting or critical incident, quite frankly. So you'll see exactly what we saw in the body camera footage. It's clear to me that the son-in-law was in a position to hear something going wrong inside the apartment where he lives with his family, rushed inside to find an unimaginable scene of his father-in-law butchering his family. Yes, ma'am.
Can I just clarify, the victim that did die, was that the mother or the daughter? And were there any prior incidents to this residence?
So I'm sorry. So I should have made that clear. The woman who's been pronounced deceased is the daughter. So her father stabbed and killed her. There are no prior calls for service, domestic violence or otherwise, at this residence. There's no history with the family that we can tell at the moment. That's always something that we look into. But right now, there are no previous calls for service for domestic disturbances here or other crimes. Yes.
Can you discuss, or are you going to name any of the victims at this time? Either this, obviously, are you going to name the suspect?
Not at the moment. We have to make sure all the next of kin notifications are taking place. Right now, the only one of this entire family that's alive and conscious is the baby. So we have to figure out what relatives may be nearby so we can make those next of kin notifications. But like we typically do, either in a follow-up news conference or a follow-up press statement, we will make all those people known to the community and to the local media.
Can you also talk about how quickly this officer had to act? How many years? You said he's a young officer.
He's a young officer with a couple years on the department. So imagine he's dispatched to this chaotic scene.
Which was a gruesome scene that happened there overnight, a domestic situation. He says that at this hour, the man who's in his 50s, they believe is responsible for all of this, is dead. Mm-hmm. And they said that they walked in when they responded to that scene on him stabbing his son-in-law, He had already stabbed his wife. Both the wife and son-in-law are in grave condition, and he stabbed his daughter to death.
Yeah. But we do want to be clear that the baby that was mentioned made it out safely. And of course, he also mentioned that there will be body cam footage that will be released, no matter how unimaginable this scene is. But that body cam footage will be, of course, released.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Wow, that's crazy. So they will be releasing body cam. I'm going to have to write this case down because this just happened. So we can see that body cam of exactly what the heck was going on. Supposedly the guy went out to clean the snow off of his car. He hears commotion in his apartment. He goes back in and his father's killing everybody, or father-in-law or whatever. I don't know. Pretty crazy if you ask me. We'll be back with more content and news here shortly. Have a great day, folks.